Jordan here, and thank you in advance for watching this. What we're about to go into are a series of artist talks as part of a series that we had launched as our form of participation for the Fall of Freedom initiative. JTR Presents is a contemporary art museum that offers design services that helps the creative community, helps the community in general, and we seek to positively impact our community and environment through art, tech, and design. So, in relation to this initiative, Fall of Freedom, it started off with 16 artists that did a call to action about 6 weeks ago. And the call was for anybody in the arts to do something, be it in their programming, a project, something for the 22nd and 21st of November of this year as a way for us as a creative community to push back and call out the current administration and their actions against creative institutions relating to censorship, justice, community, truth, and freedom of expression. This is our community's way of saying that we will not be silenced, we will not be censored. We will still continue to fight for justice for all. We'll still continue to fight for freedom for all. And we stand by our communities, especially those that are marginalized. In addition to that, we exercise our freedom of expression. We exercise our First Amendment rights in really pushing back and holding our government accountable. And so with that said, we will be moving on, and I present to you the following artists. First and foremost, thank you so very much, Yvonna, for your time and interest in this. Again, this is a part of a series of interviews, artist talks, if you will, relating to the Fall of Freedom that one of the artists that I used to study in grad school, Dred Scott, he and a bunch of artists initiated this call as a call of protests against our current administration. And they wanted to, this is under the themes of censorship, injustice, community, truth, and freedom of expressions. Things that I associate with you when we first met, because you and I met during the pandemic through Black Creatives Revival during that workshop weekend that we had. I remember you from that virtually. And then I later found out you worked at Elsewhere. And then when I got the job at Elsewhere, you helped me survive Elsewhere, amongst other things. I won't go into it, but you have been like indirectly a good friend from like afar. And then I remember you with VAE, and then we got to actually hang out recently and get to know each other for once. So I'm really honored to have you as a part of this project. My understanding for you, both as an administrator and an artist, a lot of your work is towards like community, systematic justice, and freedom of not just expression, but freedom of communities to be themselves and get the things that they need. So I'd like to start there and kind of learn a little bit more about you, and then going right into our first question of like, how do those themes inform your work, or how does your work address those themes?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for acknowledging the work that I've done in the community. It's it's been like a long time, like swirling around, doing things here and around the state to try and bring my vision to life for people who have similar aspirations as me, or even don't, like just trying to put on essentially. So I do appreciate that. I think a lot about how difficult it is to feel creative and fulfilled when you're hungry, when your roof is leaking, when you can't focus. I think that it's really important for us to talk about the fact that a lot of the things that are making life so difficult right now are very intentional. It's not your bad luck that your rent is so high. It's not your bad luck that you can't afford to keep food in your refrigerator. So some of the organizing that I've done around the needs of the community, and also like rent raisers that I've done, that was a big thing that I haven't had a chance to get back to recently, mostly because of the way that social media is changing. Rent raisers to help people who are looking for just support and relief, so that they can be more creative and do more things. And also putting food in people's refrigerators and putting people in line to know what their resources are really important to me, because all of these things are policy choices. And I think that a lot of times it's really easy to get caught up in the narrative that what's going on is like luck, like if you work harder it won't happen to you, when that's not true. It's literally a policy choice. And that really drives me when it comes to trying to make things that are not only sustainable in the community, but also things that inspire other people to understand how much of an impact they can have just by coming together.
Yeah, and just bringing in context, right? So one example is like the administration's um, defunding is probably not the right word, but the canceling of SNAP programs that
Mm-hmm.
started like a week ago,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I remember talking about these mutual aid systems. I'm thinking about mutual aid GSO,
Mm-hmm.
also with the freedom fridges that I find very
Mm-hmm.
interesting because I don't see that in anywhere else but Greensboro. So I think that's a brilliant idea of like a pantry slash refrigerator that just has food that people can give and take.
Mm-hmm.
I guess with the rent raisers, can you expand a little bit more? Are you comfortable expanding a little bit more on that and how that works?
Yes, I don't mind, but I also want to say that the Freedom Fridges, the idea of the Freedom Fridge and their free refrigerators, they are popping up. Greensboro's is 3 years old. The first one is 3 years old, but they're
Yeah,
popping up around the country. I know that there are several in like larger cities. So for Greensboro to be able to mobilize, and we have two, that's incredible. And I want to shout out all the folks that have been working on that, because without them it
that's
wouldn't have
brilliant.
happened. Like there have been so many like points of red tape and conversations before they were able to do it, the conversations that I was trying to have with people to convince them to let me do it. It was really really frustrating. So the people who are able to break through and make these things for the community that are still tangible, that are still here, that are still working, truly incredible. The rent raisers, oh go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I was just agreeing with that. Like I'm glad to hear that it's starting to pick up, and I'm also intrigued more about the challenges of that. I think maybe we should do another deeper dive at some point because I
Hmm.
think again, I like these communal systems working, and then how do you scale them, right? And I think that's going to be key into a lot of not just like resistance, but also just supporting community regardless of what administration we're dealing with. But we can get into that a little bit later as you're about to go into rent raisers.
Yeah, so the rent raisers, it's actually like born out of frustration when the pandemic happened, everybody was furloughed. We all were in that really strange pocket of time where a lot of us were making more money through these unemployment checks than we were making at the jobs that we had previous to the shutdown. I was one of those people. I was making far more. I was making what I made in a month in 2 weeks. And that was like blowing my mind. I was able to clear a lot of debt. And then I was able to save a lot and change a lot of my like living conditions to the point where I made very sustainable choices. I know that there were like jokes about like seafood boils and Telfar bags, that were, I think, made in poor taste. Um, but the when I saw what was possible for me, I thought about how could I leverage this without having to jeopardize the station that I had been able to put myself in. So I used to talk a lot on social media. I just recorded a video and I was like, this is like awful. Like some people are not getting these checks, some of us are. This is garbage. I hate this. You know what? If you need help, let's make it happen. And I had a lot of people reach out to me, and I just asked them, I said, what do you need, how much, and like why? And then I made a number basically, and I rallied my small but mighty following to raise the first day that I did it. Within a few hours, we raised like $6,000 that I was able to redistribute
Nice.
to all of
Yeah.
these folks that had reached out to me. Like the want to do more is there, the desire to do more is there, the desire to feel connected is there. It's never been hidden. It's just we've been really strategically positioned and trained to not recognize what it looks like to want to be in solidarity with each other, or how to do it for real, or
Right.
how to allow yourself to like make a mistake and be accountable. I think that a lot of people think that like one oopsie or one awkward moment is enough to not deserve community, and that's not true. Like we have all these like I'm cringe but I'm free kind of memes and nonsense that float around that
Hmm.
we should be taking more stock in, honestly. Like there are these moments that are going to
Right.
come up and make us feel like we shouldn't be here, or we shouldn't be able to commune, or like, oh, I don't feel directly impacted by this thing that they say they're organizing around, so I'm not going to show up. And those reasons are suffocating us, and we don't even realize it sometimes.
I think there's a really good point in that of like, just because something fails the first time doesn't mean it was a bad idea. It just needs tweaking.
Exactly.
And yeah, like I'm still figuring that out in some of the stuff that I'm doing with JTR Presents. With like, there was a fundraiser I was trying to do to pay all the artists in the show, and it did not go well. um, and but it has me thinking like, okay, well, what other tweaks could I do for the next round to make it work?
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, thank you for sharing that story. It sounds like it ended up being a success story the first time, and so that just kind of reminds me to keep going. And like, there's
Mm-hmm.
some way to make this work.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I think it's kind of a feature of those narratives that you're talking about that are made in poor tastes. I think that's part of the system or part of the feature itself, you
Mm-hmm.
know, because you never know what people do when you help them out. Some might screw it up, but for the most part, I like to think that we usually do good with it. And I appreciate your story of doing good with it. I think that needs some more spotlight. So we're talking about a lot of your communal work and administrative work. Uh, do any of these themes relate to your artwork as an because you're also an artist?
Mm-hmm.
So is there any relation to that?
Yeah. One of my favorite mediums to work in is collage, which to me it brings all of this together because you're bringing so many different things together. I read a lot. I read a lot of different things. I watch a lot of different things. I observe a lot, and I think that the amalgamation of all of these things show up in the shapes, in the colors, in the patterns, in the textures, in the narratives that I'm creating in my work. It's a lot of focus on what it means to consider something beyond what you currently have, and whether or not you're prepared to deal with either that disappointment or that delight. So lately, I've been working a lot with discarded and reclaimed lottery tickets. I find them. I have a friend whose grandmother loved to play the lottery. I don't even think that she cares to win. I think she just likes to scratch because she has given me some tickets with unclaimed money on them multiple times. I've asked her, I'm like, do you want your $10? And she's like, no, you can keep it. Okay. So,
That's
I've gotten a lot of
priceless.
like, thank you, mama. But I've gotten a lot of like tickets from her. I find them like tumbleweeds like blowing down the street. I find them in trash cans. Sometimes I buy a few and I incorporate them into my work and think about like what would have been on my mind. Sometimes you get these tickets. Somebody spent $50 on the scratcher, and the promise is like a trillion billion dollars, and they've won nothing. And you start to think like, what was their plan? Like if they made this money, if they were given that big comedically large check of $1 billion trillion, what was their first purchase going to be? And I like to think about the people who like I guess like didn't make it in that sense because of all the ones. I think you'd be surprised at how many of these tickets I just legitimately find. I have hundreds now. After collecting, I've been collecting for about a year. So I use a lot of those, and then also I make my own paper. I use a lot of the scrap from my other projects, and I process it down into a pulp, and I'll incorporate new things into them, turn them into a paper, and then put that also in my collages.
Yeah, so I remember, oh, and I remember your residency with Growth Space a couple months
Hmm.
back, and seeing some of your artworks, your collage work with the tickets incorporated. So it's nice to see that progressing. The way that I'm seeing the process, I'm intrigued by where you're going with that, right? Because this makes me think more about community and where it's I think the struggles we face is both individualistic and sort of collective. Like I'm just thinking about what you're saying, like what was this person's plan if they were to get this money? And I think that's often I remember that being a question I was asked whenever I did play lottery with my family or with friends, like people telling me what they would use it for. And I don't know, my mind's kind of stuck on that. Um,
Sometimes
have
you
you
pay for the chance to dream.
yeah.
Sometimes you literally pay the $2 for a chance to think about something other than what you're dealing with right now. Like, I truly believe that there
Mm,
is a moment, like, I think that every lottery ticket, no matter what it tells you, there's an energy to it, there's a magic to it, because it gives you a chance to think about what could be outside of these weird boundaries that you've given yourself. Like, some people make jokes and they're like, "Oh, I'd be so responsible if I won the lottery. I'd pay my car registration. I'd pay my electric bill on time." Things like that. But
yeah.
that's not your first thought. Your first thought was, I'm about to stunt on these hoes. Like, that the first thing you're
Yeah.
thinking of is how heavy of a chain can you wear on your neck before it starts to drag you down. Like, there's so much bravado in, like, oh, I'd be responsible. I'd get an attorney and I'd get a financial planner. No, you wouldn't. Not immediately. Your first thought would be, I want lobster. Your first thought would be, let me run it up. And
Yeah.
that's the moment that's like really interesting to me, because that moment is almost like psychosis. like like that almost panic of, like, I have to spend
Interesting.
it because I have it.
Yeah.
And that's like what I feel when I pick up these lottery tickets, is that, like, that possibility of, like, bliss, and, like, just,
Mm.
like, could you imagine what it would feel like if you held in your hands a ticket that probably had more money on it than potentially generations of your family have made in their lifetime? Like, that
Yeah.
moment when you're considering it is absolutely bonkers. And then what's even more bonkers, and,
Yeah.
excuse my French, is when you think
Yeah.
about the fact that there are people who have this money and never touch a lottery ticket. And those are a lot of these people are making decisions about how we get to live our lives. And then you get
Right.
sad again. So then you may or may not go and get another ticket. Like, there's
Right.
like it gives you a chance to dream again in a way that's almost like childlike. Like, lottery tickets are toys. And
Yes.
when we
Like
look at
mental
it that
toys.
way, yes, they're mental toys. Like, it's mental
Yeah.
stimulation. And when you look at it like that, it doesn't feel like as nebulous.
You know, it's funny you say that because like when I think about if I were to get the lottery for some of this, like for the money that's usually shown, I'm like, oh, my student loans can go by.
Paid. Paid. Are you kidding me?
Oh man,
Paid
like,
off.
oh
Credit cards cleared.
yeah, buy me
Okay.
some land and a little cabin,
Okay.
and the rest of that can just go towards the rest of my family's bills, so we can just
Mhm.
people can just leave us alone.
Mhm.
Yeah, like, oh, that's like immediately the first thing that comes to my mind. But and to your point, right? And that does give me a sense of dopamine. And so I guess because my next question is about like what does resistance look like in your creative practice and in our creative industries? And I feel like you just gave a hint, like give space for people to dream. Like just the act of dreaming can be a form of resistance. No? I mean, what would your take be?
I think that that is a good take, but I also think that like dreaming is not enough. Because I think that what we don't realize is when we only allow ourselves to sit in our dreams is that we are resting on our laurels in a way that we can't afford to. Like if you spend all day doing nothing, your world around you, it's not going to get better, and it most definitely will get worse. We live in a society where stagnation is really and truly not an option because the cost of living is going to continue to rise. The cost of food is going to continue to rise. There's nothing that we can do about that except for stay afloat. So dreaming is important. Dreaming big is important, but also dreaming in a way that's not just individualistic. I don't want to just think about like, oh, like, and this is no shade because you and I are on the same page about this land in this cabin, but I don't want to think like, oh, like I'm gonna just go get my land and I'm gonna just go get my cabin. I also want to think about what would it look like to buy things more locally? What would it look like to get a membership at the co-op that I can't currently afford? But if I won the lottery, then I'd have a little bit of extra disposable income and I could do that. What would it look like to get my plants from the local plant shops instead of going to Lowe's or stealing a cutting from my doctor's office? Like, what would it look like to support my community and not isolate myself from my community? Because money has the option to do both things. Like, without
Oh,
it,
yes, it
you can
does.
isolate, or you can be surrounded by people and they become your resource, your community, or you can buy your way out of ever needing anybody. And that's not my goal. My goal when it comes to my specifically financial stability, whether or not I pick up the winning lottery ticket, is to find myself in a place where I don't feel shame about whether or not I can show up on a single day and what's making it difficult for me to show up. Especially like being
Interesting.
chronically ill,
Yeah.
there's no 2 days are the same. And because no 2 days are the same, there are days where I can be very much comfortable, very much present, very much here, very much ready to go. And there are days where none of that is true. So being able to move in a way that allows me to assess my needs and not have to think like, oh, well, I have to call out of work, and if I call out of work, then I have to use my vacation time, and you just get caught in this like almost like ping pong game of if and but, just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and not giving yourself the freedom to think outside of that. Like there are things that I want to do and organize, but if I'm not feeling well and now I have to consider the consequences of me not feeling well, the consequences of me not being able to move and go and move and go, I can't focus. Not the way that I'd want to.
You know, that makes me think if we talk about showing up and the challenges of that. And I'm realizing more and more just how potent that saying is about showing up being half the battle.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think about this next question of aside from protesting and donations, what else can we do to participate in, social change?
Mm-hmm.
And in a previous conversation with someone else, we were touching on the idea of just showing up. And so it sounds like, I don't know, I feel like that's kind of a place for us to kind of start from there, despite
Mm-hmm.
your challenge, despite your chronic illness and what you're currently going through, it's still having that discernment of when to show up and when to take time for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what would you recommend for folks that may be going through something similar? I think that might be a better question to ask.
What I find is really effective with being present and people understanding what it means for me to be present is being honest and being straightforward. But also, I don't have to tell everybody my whole business. I don't have to tell you like, oh, my left toe is cramping, and when my left toe cramps and I can't put on, it doesn't have to get that deep. I can literally just say, hey, I don't feel great. I had plans to come today, but because I can't keep that plan, do you have time next weekend that we could do this instead? And being able to do that with people has been like really helpful. When I was younger and also before I was diagnosed with ADHD, I would just not show up. I would just not show up all the time. And I was so stressed out about the fact that I couldn't get there that I was also too stressed out to tell someone that I wasn't going to be able to come. And that like tug of war, then I would feel shame because I'd be like, oh, They don't even know. They think I'm mad at them now. And like all of this, you know, early 20 something nonsense that swirls in your head
Yep.
would make it like even more difficult to show up. That's also another thing, like let yourself grow up. Like really
Yeah.
truly like just let it happen. That and being honest and trying not to beat myself up, and also not beating up anyone else for being honest. Like, yeah, it's frustrating, but you know, they weren't irritated with you when you said you couldn't come. So now what are you going to do? Now what's going to happen? If you say that you're really like about your community and you're about your friends and you're about building and you're about this communication, you can communicate your frustration, but you have to be prepared for someone to communicate their frustration to you. And that like preparation and communication I think are really key, and also understanding your boundaries, like understanding what's going to make you comfortable, what's going to make you uncomfortable. I'm not great at parallel parking. I know that if the parking situation is a parallel parking situation, is going to stress me out, so I'm going to ask, do you guys want to carpool? That's going to help me, like that's going to increase my chances of being able to go. Do whatever you can to increase your chances of being able to go. That is really
Mm.
key. And also there's been this conversation very, very present all over social media that's like community is like the cost of community is inconvenience or whatever. I don't think that's verbatim. And I think that a lot of people are interpreting that in a way that I personally am not. I'm interpreting it in the way that like the cost of community is inconvenience is in like if you want to build community, you have to go outside, period, in the sense that you have to DoorDash less. I went to a restaurant that I normally just like get delivered, and I saw a friend that I haven't seen in a decade yesterday. You know,
Right.
like you have to
Yeah.
go outside. Like you just have to
Yeah.
go outside. Like you're not gonna build this world from your phone alone, and that is really hard I think for some people to grapple with because of how social media has like changed, and the conversations of like being chronically online and things like that have changed. And
Right.
as somebody, I'm very pro social media. I've been very pro social media since I was a teenager. Like I'm there's no shade in this whatsoever, but I think
Yeah.
that some
Me.
people think that like just texting back and forth is enough, and you gotta, they make the joke when the plans come out of the group chat, like the plans have to come out of the group chat.
Yeah.
And then also building something that you want to see happen is really key, because build something
Right.
that you want to show up to, and then more people will, you'll meet more people who are more aligned with you, who want to see the world that you want to see.
Yeah. I resonate with that because it's like I'm pro social media too because it's a tool like anything else. It can be a dumpster fire if you make it a dumpster fire, but also it's been a way for me to connect with folks that without it, I just won't ever see them again.
Mm-hmm.
I've been lucky enough to meet people in different parts of the country, different parts of the world, and like with social media, I can kind of still keep up with them, and
Mm-hmm.
then like find out that some of them came over here, and I'm like, oh, great. Let me
Mm-hmm.
say hi. One of them's in Charlotte, so I was like, oh, great.
Mm-hmm.
Let me go say hi to my friend from Spain, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but to your point, I think as technology advances and as new things come up, this reminds me of kind of a lesson I learned that like new school and old school are actually friends. Like the new
Mm-hmm.
school isn't here to replace the old school; they're actually here to work together
Mm-hmm.
because they're here to solve the same problem, which
Mm-hmm.
hasn't been solved. And that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of how I see technology or anything new. It's
Mm-hmm.
like it's just there to supplement what we already have going so we can do it a little easier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so, that makes me think about this next idea about ignore that 5 minute time thing. Um, that has me thinking about the idea of like how do we amplify the role of art and design in our
Mm-hmm.
fight for freedom, and changes that we're seeking, because I think in some way we have to embrace new strategies, new tools, new tactics, new technology.
Yeah.
So, yeah, how do you think how do you how do you think we can amplify that within art and design um to fight for these freedoms and changes we're seeking?
I think that there are a lot of people who have had this conversation in a way that like I could only dream of having it. I've been working on this book. It was a gift during my residency from my friend Enid, and it's called The Black Experience in Design, Identity, Expression, and Reflection. So it's really funny that you just brought that up. I literally had it sitting next to me and have been getting at it, as you
I
can see.
still need to buy that book. Yes.
It's so good. Like not far in it,
Oh
and
wow.
I'm like obsessed. Like there is so much in here
Yeah.
that just really speaks to just being in a room where you could tell people are confused while you're there. And the
Mm.
like all these pink tabs that I have are for
Mm-hmm.
other things that they've suggested that you read. Well, their sources or their bibliographies and things like that. So more stuff
Yeah.
to read on the same topic. This I'm not done, but it's incredible.
Okay.
And so like I when it comes to finding that answer, I'm too young to have a genuine solution. There's no way. There's no way. I just turned 31 2 weeks ago. There's no way that you can ask somebody this age who has not I haven't toppled a government. Do you know what I'm saying? I haven't
Yeah.
I'm not doing something so large as to feeling very comfortable with giving you a concrete answer. I
Fair.
think that the best thing to say here is that there are people who are doing the work and have been doing it for long enough. And this is where that new school and that old school come in. We need to listen. Like, I think that
Mm.
we have become so indignant as, like, one of the things I think social media has done to us, like, specifically our, like, age bracket and generation, like, that
Yeah.
zillennial like swish around is that we have access to so much information that we feel like we know a lot when experience experience is what the we're missing because we're spending a lot of time we spend a lot of time researching, which I think is like fascinating for us as a group, but not as much time living and being
Right.
in these industries, especially because so many of us have been turned away from these industries in a way that has caused us to feel the need to build or the desire to be an entrepreneur, which there's nothing wrong with at all, but it's very possible that you're missing a point of mentorship. So like finding somebody who is doing something that appeals to you, and hopefully they are kind enough to have a conversation with you. Hopefully they're kind enough to build a rapport with you, because some of these people are not nice, and that's like true. Some people are
Right.
not super into that kind of knowledge sharing, and that's okay. It is
Right.
what it is. But for every one person who's being reclusive about sharing that information, there are three who are so ready to talk to you. There
Y-
are so many elders that we need to be looking at and having these conversations with. And
yeah.
I really want to just press on people. That's part of the like going outside and asking people, "Oh, what do you do?" "Oh, oh, oh." Like you literally never know who you're
Yeah.
sitting next to until you ask.
So what's buzzing through my brain right now is this back and forth, right? And I think it's kind of the essence of our community, or like the main ingredient of our community, this back and forth. Because, like, to your point, especially in our industries, there have been some areas where it's like, yeah, maybe we haven't been let in, so we kind of got to go make our own thing. That's
Mhm.
partly why I started my business. I did not
Mhm.
want to do it. I just had to
Mhm.
because rent was due.
Right.
But right, but to your point, right? Like looking for those mentorships and the mentors I've been lucky enough to find, and for them to say yes, or for them to teach me regardless. Um, it's this sort of back and forth. And so in that, I think it's the one thing my mind is starting to drift to is sort of like this idea of accountability and responsibility. The responsibility for us, especially in our generation, because I'm 34 too. I'm only like 3 years older. Um, and I I think I agree with you. Like, I think there is an element to us of we're the most educated generation because of college and all that jazz, and yet we're the most in debt. And so and we also have all these phones and technologies. We have access to information, but I don't think we have the wherewithal or the full discernment to filter through that information sometimes. And so, hence the need to look for someone who has a little more experience, who can give a little more nuance to what we're reading or listening to. Um, and so, with that said, I also think that the responsibility is on not our generation to say yes a little more or
Mhm.
let us in, or the ones that do, right?
Mhm.
That it's then our responsibility again to hold on to those and water those as they're watering us. So that kind of makes me that leads into the next question about like what can be the personal or political implications of the things we create, and what do you think is the responsibility of the creative, assuming we have any?
I think it's really important to be for real. Like be so for real. Like I understand that not everyone is going to be super tolerant or an ally or whatever, but I don't like these moments that I've seen a lot of people who, and this is another like caveat of social media, like these identities have become buzzwords. I remember how freeing it was to use Tumblr in my late teens, early 20s to find the language for my gender and my sexuality that I couldn't find anywhere else. And now, you know, all of these things are so popular, which I don't have a problem with. I love it because as it was rising in its popularity, it found its way to me, you know? But because these things are like so popular now, these conversations that people are having are empty because nobody knows what anything means. Like people are more educated, but the literacy is just like not there. And like there is a cultural literacy that I think a lot of people don't want to attribute to anything. I think that people are like, well, oh, it's just a word, it's just a word. It's just, just because it's popular in the zeitgeist doesn't mean it's
Is this
working, you know?
when you say cultural literacy, is that different from like media literacy? Because I've heard that term recently, and
Cultural
I'm kind of intrigued.
literacy I is a term that I have not heard. I do not believe I'm coining it though. But like when we think about how everybody's like, clock it. Clock what? You have no idea what you're talking about. You know what I mean? Like
Okay,
the like
yeah,
how people are like they're like, oh, it's a meme, it's a meme. It's not a meme. It's not a meme. It has been around for so long. Or like how you hear
right.
like when I hear teenagers like just, out in the world. I sound geriatric. When I hear teenagers just out and about and they're like saying words that I'm like, how would you know what that is? You know what I mean? And also like not enough for me to be like schooling these teenagers that I'm seeing out in public because that's weird and unnecessary, but
Yeah,
enough to be for it to flag to me that there's something going on here. Like, oh,
right.
you picked this up, you know? Like when we were growing up, like our specific age bracket when we were growing up, our parents' lingo, style, even their music, that was garbage to us. We didn't want
Right.
to, we weren't regurgitating these things at all, like at all. Like we weren't, I think it took a while for dope to like re-enter our lexicon because we were on swag, like
Yeah,
they're, no, things weren't whack anymore, you know. Do you remember
right.
Trill? What happened to Trill?
I don't
Like
even remember what that meant.
I think it was true and real, if I'm not mistaken, but I have no idea, or if I don't know. I wasn't, I wasn't,
Yeah,
that wasn't my scene.
no.
But like when we have these conversations and we're talking about like people being like, oh, that's just what people say. No, like the through line that I've been seeing is that internet culture is not internet culture. It's our culture. It's black. Specifically, it's black. It's black. It's so black.
Oh,
And this like
absolutely.
the divorcing of how black these things are from how they're being used is concerning to me, you know? And that's one of the things that kind of sticks out to me when I think about the way that we're using the internet and like why I kind of understand why, older generation doesn't want to mess with the younger kids because we have no idea what we're talking about because we're being inundated with these things. We're seeing them people doing the same trend. We're seeing 1,000 people do this thing over and over and over again to the point where it's been completely recontextualized. The etymology of culture and the way that the zeitgeist, the shape of the zeitgeist, the previous theories about how things enter and exit is being rewritten as we speak. The
Yeah.
world is like expanding exponentially in a way that no other generation has experienced, and we're in the middle of it all, you know?
Yeah, no, this reminds me of just how potent our advancements in technology has been, particularly in communication. Like, again, we can be in touch with someone on the other side of the planet in real time, in
Mhm.
a whole different time zone.
Mhm.
Like, I don't like our society hasn't had access to communication and connection like that forever. Like within the past century, like even a century ago, we were like communicating. I think the telephone was just starting to be a thing, and
Mhm.
that was kind of a big deal, right?
Mhm.
So yeah, I think you're touching on something really important. So like what I'm getting out of this in terms of responsibility of the creative is like really taking oh gosh, take I think the term is taking stock or like taking account of the things that are at hand, the things that are affecting us right now, and trying to understand how that relates to the people in our direct line of influence and people that are beyond that. I don't
That
know if
and
I'm off.
also, I think you're on the right track. I think that and also it's really important for us to properly archive and document because of the way that things are being lost and erased,
Yeah,
especially Black history is being rewritten every day in a way that is disgusting and deplorable. So
right.
what do we do to keep that from happening? What do we do to make sure people don't forget what it actually means for
Mm,
us to have even been brought to this country in the first place? Number 1. Number
yeah,
2, our lifespan is shorter, period. Black Americans' lifespan is shorter. I think about, may he rest, D'Angelo in his 50s. Bell Hooks was in her 50s. These people who we have attributed and they are like major inspirations. They are behemoths to us in their 50s, in their 50s. Like they were very young, very, very, very young. And the idea of thinking that we're either invincible or that, live fast, die young, whatever, this dichotomy is going to lose us more, and we need to face the facts that we are living in a place that, well, I don't think we're not facing the facts. I want to say that. I think that we need to add this to our docket in a way. Like we need to be making sure that we're preserving what we have, because without that preservation, so much of our narrative is going to get lost to the point where by the time we're in our 50s, which is not far away, by the time we're in our 50s, what will they remember? Like, we're not going to be around forever to tell our oral stories. It's just not going to happen that way. And with
right.
the way that we're seeing censorship change and shape, and the way, especially these like AI creations and deepfakes, our understanding of reality is going to be challenged more than ever in the next, honestly, just from here forward. Like there's never going to be a moment where we can just trust that what we're seeing is exactly as we're supposed to see it, as it was intended, as it was actually happening, or whatever. Like now we always have to look over our shoulder as to whether or not the thing that's in front of us is an accurate reflection of the world that we live in, and not some kind of heinous creation. It's We're getting to this like Prometheus sort of point when it comes to media and
Right.
art. Art should be separate from that. Art should be
Okay.
protected from that, but we know that that's not going to happen. We're already seeing AI art show up on things that previously were done by illustrators, artists, and things like that, photographers even.
Yeah.
And we can't be blasé to that at all.
No, not at all. What I'm hearing is like the very fundamentals of things that we thought were sort of unchangeable are also changing. I think he said that
Mhm.
before. in different words. And so what I'm hearing is like to really hone in, and especially about responsibility. It sounds like we as creatives really need to hold in about the preservation of our stories, as it's easier for things to be written and rewritten. The very things like that, the very facts that we rely on, the very facts, the way in which we rely or assess information to make sure it's credible are currently being challenged.
Hmm.
Not just with AI, but also with our administration. Like I immediately thought of when you were talking about like the need to preserve our history, our Black history. I think about in one way we're having new fights, but in another way, I think we're having like old fights too.
The same
Like,
fight.
yeah, like
The
the whole thing
same
about,
fight.
yeah, like the whole thing about CRT. Look, CRT is just American history, trying specifically focused on trying to explain or explore why is it that Black and brown people are systematically the most vulnerable.
Hmm.
Because it's not out of bad luck and it's not out of poor character
Hmm.
and it's not out of the individual. It's coming from something systematic,
Hmm.
right? And that's all CRT is. It's just history specifically aimed at trying to answer that question. And our country, half our country is in a fight with that.
Do you want to
Um,
let the people know what CRT is, just in case they don't know?
oh, critical race theory.
Hmm.
You want to tag team it? Because I feel like
Yeah.
we can
Critical
tag
race
team it.
theory and also sociology. Those
Mhm.
like are very much like the humanities at large are under
And
fire.
yeah, and my understanding is that that started with a couple of lawyers at Harvard, I think, that were like, "Hey, Black and brown people are like disproportionately represented in the social justice system. What's that about?" And then it just evolved into like, "Oh, there's a history to this."
Yeah,
Um,
I'm not as familiar with that aspect of it, but I do know
okay,
like when it comes to the sociological aspects, some women in gender studies also hits on this. I think that it just really it
ooh,
depends on who you're reading.
fair.
But there are these theorists, writers, activists, advocates who are building really beautiful cultural cases based on facts, statistics, all of these things that we have been fed consistently as the point of making something. How do you prove it? Okay, I can prove it because this percentage of people is in this room and this percentage of people is not. Oh, okay. Well, now what do you want me to do? Like that's the point that we keep hitting at is that we have
Mm,
stacks and stacks and stacks. We have all of these colleges across our vast nation that have each of them, not each, but so many of them have women's and gender studies, English literature departments, excuse me, sociology departments, and
African
also political
American
science,
studies.
African American, and diaspora studies departments. That's five departments that all have an opportunity to have these conversations. And there's probably way more that we haven't even considered that
Right.
all have the opportunity to have these conversations. And yet we're consistently being fed, oh, you guys are sensitive. Oh, it's not like that. Oh, again, it's just bad luck. There's no way. There's no way that all of the investment, there are people that I've never met who are talking about probably exactly what we're saying right now on the other side of the country. Maybe not even on the other side of the country, maybe down the street. Like the concern is not an isolated concern as much as they want us to believe that it is. And
Right.
I hate when people are like, "Oh, they don't want us to win." Because again, it makes it seem nebulous and difficult to attack when the best way that we have learned when we constantly see the things that like are shifted into being made targets, it's community. It's always community. So that means that community is our strongest tool. Standing together is our strongest tool. Feeding people is our strongest tool. Keeping people housed is our strongest tool.
Yeah.
So why not invest in that? Why not make a path to make it easier for you to show up in that?
I think that kind of goes into my last question about like, are we obligated to leverage our access and privilege to advocate for these changes? If so, how? If not, why? I think we're already kind of touching on that.
I think I think that when it comes to obligation, it's a weird space because, again, you can only do what you can do. But challenging your idea of what you can do, I think, is like that's your obligation, is to just think a little bit bigger, but not think so big that you get like overwhelmed. And it's hard to know when that's going to happen. Like, you just have to think, okay, what can I do? Okay, I know that my city has a freedom fridge. I can't afford the food, but I have gas in my car and I have a bottle of Windex. I'm going to go clean the freedom fridge. That kind of obligation, I think, really key, really important as just a community member. When it comes to your art and your work, your obligation is to tell your story however you want that to be. If you aspire for that story to resonate, or even for certain people to be able to connect, then your obligation is to put your art where people can see it, where people can afford to see it. If your aspiration is to put it in homes far and wide, then your obligation is to price it so that people can get to it. If that's not, because I don't necessarily aspire to make a bunch of prints. Every so often I'll dabble, but I don't aspire to mass production. If that is your aspiration, then what do you have to do to make that happen? And in making that happen, if it's important to you to stay within your preconceived morals, how do you do that? How do you keep yourself accountable? How do you make sure that selling out is not on the table? Because money is cool.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, money is great. I love money, and I
Right.
would love to think that money loves me too. But
Mm.
also, sometimes to get towards money, we're put in situations where we have to make decisions that might take us outside of ourselves. Your obligation is to be for real about what that means. Again, you're, like I said earlier, you just have to be for real. Like, you have to be for real. You can't say that you want this thing and not work towards it at all. You can't say that you support this thing and not show up. You have to be for real. It's
No,
no more lip
that's
service. It's action.
that part. That part. And that's fair. Have to show up one way or another. So, in that regard, this reminds me of another conversation of like, it doesn't have to be, it sounds like it doesn't have to be a grand gesture either. It just needs to be consistent and honest. So, like you said, even if all you can do is just come and clean in a fridge, the freedom fridge, that can be enough. And I'm wondering if that also has to be like a message for whoever needs to hear that. Um, like the little things, even just showing up to volunteer to like give out food at a soup kitchen or hand clothes out to folks at a clothing drive can just be enough.
Also, sometimes like the research and like when you say like soup kitchen and clothing drive, also being critical of the organizations that are doing the work is important, because there are organizations here that some of the work that they're doing, I'm like, okay, but then they open their mouths and I'm like, ooh, you know. And like, we're in this like crosshairs of,
I think I know what
are
you're talking
they,
about.
we could talk about it later, but we're in this
Hmm.
crosshairs of these moments where you have to decide. You have to decide, and part of that decision, your time, your dollar, your resources, those are your like votes when we're not in an election time. When you, wherever you put your energy, also your likes, who you're following, like those numbers, all of that matters. People want to be like, oh, it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. People are getting paid because they have higher numbers than you. It matters. Don't let anybody tell you that it doesn't matter. Do not let anybody tell you it doesn't matter. Your one
That
matters. It will
part.
always matter. Legitimately, some elections, especially in smaller cities and counties, some people win by a dozen. That one matters. That one literally matters. So, what are you going to do with your one? Are you going to show up? Are you going to stay critical behind a screen? You have opportunities. And if you don't know how to show up, you can literally look towards people who are doing things that interest you and just ask them, like, hey, next time, my book swaps, I had somebody reach out to me and say, hey, I actually really enjoy these. Do you guys need help? Yeah. Like, yeah, we definitely do. What do you want to do? The day of, one of our volunteers, we've never had volunteers before. We We went outside of our comfort zone because we don't like asking people to do things without paying them. We offered them a nice lunch and a barrage of snacks and free drinks. We were like, that's what we can give y'all. The day of, somebody was unable to come, and we were kind of really counting on them to be there. And while we were setting up, somebody was on the porch and they're like, hey, I really love that you all do this. I would love to help in any way. I was like, can you help right now? And they stayed with us for nearly the entire day, and they helped boots on the ground, and they helped run it in a way that made it so much smoother than it would have been if we hadn't had that one extra person. Showing up matters.
That's
Showing up
beautiful.
can make such a difference. And because of them, we were able, that like stress off of trying to figure out what to do without that extra body, without those extra hands, made it so that we were able to see moments where we can expand for our next one, for our third, our fourth, our fifth, you know. Like this was number 3. When the spring comes around, we're a well-oiled machine now because we were able, because the community gave us space to show up, the community gave us space to try things out, the community gave us time to really like buff and polish this thing that they asked us for. So showing up and understanding how literally one is enough. One is more than enough. You have a lot of power that you have to claim or somebody will take it from you.
Beautifully put. I think that's a great place to end on this. Ivana, again, thank you so, so, so much for this. Um, and yeah, I can't wait to do more cool stuff with you because I think that this is the very work we're doing, right? A conversation that I hope translates into action for so many others. And so for that, I thank you for this, and I thank you in advance for whatever we get to do in the future.
Hell yeah. Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much for watching. That was such a fun conversation. Before we go, I want to update you on a few things. First of all, JTR Presents just launched an artist resource map. This map is intended to centralize information regarding the resources that can be equipment, venue spaces, exhibition spaces, residency programs, or other funding for artists to continue their creative practice and for our voices to still be heard and our stories to still be told. Secondly, there are other resources relating to voting. Your representation and your voice does matter, especially in the upcoming elections. You can find more information somewhere around this video. It's probably at the bottom in the description, but please, please, please get out and vote and make sure you're represented. Third, please donate to your local artist organizations or any art organizations that resonate with you. A lot of times us artists and creatives rely on organizations like the National Endowment of the Arts or our regional or art council that often offer funding for our programs or funding for programs for other organizations or offer funding for us artists to continue our work through residencies or just giving us the money directly. So donate to those institutions so they can continue to empower us to do the work that we're doing. And then lastly, I just want to let you know that your life, your voice, and your money matter, and they make a big difference, even if it's something small. Thank you again. Hope to see you soon. Take care.